You think about it this way, it's like Spotify, Apple, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram is changing every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
There's something new going on with just those 6 platforms, not to mention, Snapchat, and you could add another 10.
Right.
It's changing every day.
Yeah.
You as an artist, you can track that every day. Like, what's the new hashtag that TikTok's using? What's the new dimensions that Instagram is using in terms of their photos? Like, staying on top of that and being an expert in that requires someone to be doing that all day, every day. And good management companies are bringing people into their orbit to sort of monitor that.
What makes Chris Taylor start a management company in 2024? Why do you do this to yourself?
Yeah, I've had some other friends ask me that as well. Terry McBride teases me about this.
Okay.
And I tell him, I say, I love it. I love it. And it's not all about the straightest line to making as much money as possible, but I love it. I love working with artists directly. I love being aligned with them, and I love being on the same side of the table.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from being an artist. That comes from being an artist advocate as a lawyer. It's like I like when you're the record label, it's adversarial.
Yes.
Half the time, right? It's
more than half the time.
Yeah. So I like being in the manager's seat. And I do really think, as I alluded to earlier, there are so many tools at your disposal these days. I know everybody likes to say, well, you can do everything yourself. It's like, calm down. You can't do everything yourself, but you can do a lot more yourself now than you could 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And really good managers, like Jonathan Daniel at Crush, or Corin Capshaw at Red Light, or the Azofs, or Scooter Braun, or with what they're doing at Remus, like those are all like proof is in the pudding.
Right.
Can managers build really big, amazing businesses?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, now more than ever. And you can own assets if you're managing Drake, or you're managing Snoop Dogg, or you're partners with someone like a Jay-Z. There's real assets to own alongside managers. Ted Chung taught me that, Snoop's old manager. And he said, listen, you be a partner with the artist as opposed to the manager who could potentially be fired any day.
Right.
It's like you're owning assets along the way.
But owning assets, not necessarily in terms of the music, it can be there, but if they're already off and going, right, they've already built a business, then there's across other verticals, whether it's a merch product or if it's a toy or whatever it may be, right? This is what we're talking about.
100%.
Yeah. Well, this is a quote from an interview that you did, and to what you're talking about, you say in this interview, look behind the curtain. Management companies are providing a bunch of services that historically record labels have done. So in what you're saying, it's more than just now a traditional, I would assume, and maybe there's a bit of that, but with Hall of Fame artists, it's not just looking at it from the commission, 10, 15, 20%. Artists that are coming on board, there is also a partnership and an equity, because I think, again, you said this, but really maybe driving the point home in this is managers are really helping build the ecosystem of the artist.
Yeah.
And more than ever, it feels like the dynamics have changed, where you don't necessarily need the record label, but you do need people who are very good at what they do. And you need lots of them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the dynamic has changed where there's another way to look at the business for the manager, where there's more equity and there's more skin in the game.
100%. You think about it this way, it's like Spotify, Apple, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram is changing every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
There's something new going on with just those 6 platforms, not to mention, Snapchat, and you could add another 10.
Right.
It's changing every day.
Yeah.
You as an artist, you going to track that every day? Like, what's the new hashtag that TikTok's using? What's, the new, the new dimensions that Instagram is using in terms of their photos? Like, staying on top of that and being an expert in that requires someone to be doing that all day, every day. And good management companies are bringing people into their orbit to sort of monitor that and monitor those platforms, every day.
Yeah. All right, folks. I hope you're enjoying this convo. There is a ton of value that you can extract from it. And speaking of which, if you're an artist or manager watching this and you want to get more in-depth strategies regarding your career, then my one-on-one consultations could be for you. These are fully personalized, just you and me tackling whatever you need in your career. Now, if you're not familiar with me, if you don't know, I have over 16 years of experience working with artists like Jesse Reyes and Eminem, to managers like Troy Carter and Tyler Henry, to working with brands like Nike or the Toronto Raptors. I have deep knowledge in many areas of the music business that can help you map out your next moves. Whether that's helping with your personal brand or creating a marketing plan or building out your content strategies that actually provides results, or simply navigating the music industry to whatever is most relevant to where you're at, I want to help. You can now book a one-on-one consultation session for a fee with me through my Calendly. You can find the link in the description below. Now let's get back to the pod.
But when you look at even a good record label, major record labels in particular, it's like, okay, how are you mastering that in Australia, Southeast Asia, the UK, and all around the world? I think you still need those record label partners who are scaled that way to provide that support. But you can get a lot of things going and have a lot more control and a lot more of the back end yourself as a manager and recording artist than you could 10 years ago.
Do you think, though, as a management company would say Hall of Fame artists, is that where the future could potentially lead to, where you don't need to sign to a major label and you can have boots on the ground in all of these other territories?
I think it's a little tough to have boots on the ground in all these other territories. So I think there's still a reason why Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Drake are working with major record labels because of some of that.
Gotcha.
Then again, someone like Taylor Swift, she's not signing a 7-album life of copyright 18-point royalty deal anymore.
Yeah.
She's doing maybe 1 or 2 albums on like a 90-10, or I can't imagine how crazy her deals are and her split is. She's maintaining all the control and the majority of the margin.
Yeah.
And really that's a market share play at this point.
For the label.
Yes.
Talk to me about market share. There's probably nobody that I've had in this chair that understands market share more than you would.
Market share gets most important on a couple different levels. When there are black box payments that get paid out, there's these funds that are sort of like in the air amounts that aren't claimed that need to get distributed throughout the music industry. They're often distributed based on market share, So let's say there's $100,000 of undistributed money that needs to be claimed by the industry. Those 3 major companies are getting the majority of that because of their market share. So they're maintaining that market share because that's one of the main reasons. Also, market share allows them to push around people like Spotify,
Right.
Having larger market share, having Taylor Swift most of the time allows you to push around TikTok.
Lets you dictate the terms.
Yeah.
Which in this case would be Universal and Lucian Grange.
Yeah.
Right.
And TikTok's not sitting there going, well, you've only got Taylor Swift on a 98.2 deal or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But Lucian doesn't have to worry about that. It's like, no, I got Taylor Swift.
That's all that matters.
And you don't get her.
Yeah.
You know, although in the case of TikTok, she kind of went around them anyway, and kind of thwarted their strategy in that regard, right? I mean, it's part of the reason why they had to throw in the towel ultimately
UMG.
on the TikTok argument.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because I mean, somehow, some way, Taylor was still doing business with TikTok when everybody else
that's
on
right.
Universal wasn't allowed to.
That's right.
Because she's so big,
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. And so big that you kind of turn a blind eye to that at the label. We're like, all right, cool, go do your thing.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to piss off that artist or that person.
The dynamic and the power dynamic in the industry is really changing, every day because of that. As artists get more and more established and have more and more power and have more and more tools at their disposal, they're able to drive tougher deals with these major labels who used to be able to get a lot of rights in return for what they put on the table.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's where the power and the dynamic is shifting over to the managers.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you said something interesting because you said there's a black box, right? Just so I want to be clear, you're talking about $100,000 as like an example, but that's not the real example. We're talking about billions, hundreds of millions,
millions for sure.
Millions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the publishing side and on the recording
Publishing
side.
for sure. Yeah. Because there's neighboring rights and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So on the management side, it's interesting to me how you've built it up. You have a marketing person. Well, the founders in the company or the partners in the company. I'm not sure what it is, and their names are escaping me. I have it here somewhere, but I can't find it.
Oh.
But you had a marketing person and you had a radio person and then another.
Yeah, it's been interesting the way it's been assembled.
Yeah.
Like each one.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Each one of the managers, well, there's 6 altogether now. So it's still relatively small, right? Myself, we all manage our own rosters, but at the same time, I have some extra tools in my toolbox. I was a music lawyer for 20 years,
Yes.
so I've got that tool in my toolbox. I've got a little bit of A&R skill, so I've got that tool in my toolbox, and I've got a great Rolodex of contacts.
Agreed.
Keith Hagen, who's one of our managers based in New York, was a serious high-level music publicist for 20 years before he got into the music business. So if you need a phone number or an email of somebody at the New York Times, Saturday Night Live, or the Tonight Show, he's got that covered.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah Osgood, who works for us up in Toronto, is again, she does a bunch of things extremely well, but she's an incredible tour manager person in terms of budgets, organizing, production, merchandise, like hardcore admin, making sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted.
Yeah.
We have another staffer in Vancouver, Casey, who's a younger guy who's like has a history as a DJ, really up in terms of data analytics and digital marketing.
Yeah.
Both Casey and Kate, who work with us in New York, are sort of digital natives, younger people who kind of like grew up in this and just love figuring out how, where, and when to find fans.
Yeah.
And think about it all day.
Yeah.
Every day. Everybody's working really, really hard. So it's kind of complementary. There's some newer people we're bringing into the company too that will fill up some other holes in the organization.
I found it interesting that you had a radio person in there because a lot of people think that, again, take this off if you want, but I found it interesting that you had a radio person in there because a lot of people think that the medium is dying, but to me it showed that it's still a really important piece of the puzzle, especially if you want to break an artist nationwide.
Yeah.
That's how I thought of it.
Yeah, I think having that, I still think it's not as important as it used to be
Sure.
10 years ago. We
Sure.
all know this.
Yeah.
But life is better if you're on the radio. You're on the radio? Sure.
Yeah.
You know, that's another
Yeah.
one of the 24 things that you want
Right.
on the program.
Yeah.
You know? And so having people who have been in and around radio at a serious level with experience of how it works is invaluable, you know, relationship-wise, experience-wise.
Yeah. What would you say in today's day and age, now you having Hall of Fame, what are those other things in the dozens that you want, you know, the check mark in the box
Yep.
checked to ensure that the career is moving forward and there's momentum there?
It's a bunch of those items that I mentioned already. So, you know, people would argue press and publicity probably not as important as it was 10 years ago, but still important. You know, still matters.
How come?
I mean, you know, you start
This
with...
is what we're going to argue.
Yeah. Well, you start, and again, I prefaced it by saying not as important as it was 10 years ago. I mean, if you had a, you know, great review in Pitchfork or something like that, that could almost change your life overnight. I'm not so sure it does anymore.
No.
And you can get, you know, we've all got those press reports of like coverage in 70 different online, you know, articles or reviews.
Right.
Doesn't move the needle as much as it used to. But then every once in a while, there's a New York Times review that matters. Some people would say being on the Tonight Show doesn't matter anymore, but I think I'd rather be on the Tonight Show than not be on the Tonight Show. I think I'd rather be on Saturday Night Live. Certainly moves the needle. Jules Holland moves the needle. There's still press, you know, opportunities that still move the needle, just not as much as they used to.
Yeah, no. So I mean, to your point, that's what, like, I think if you're trying to get a press person to move the needle for you and break you, and all of a sudden you become a superstar because you do a late night appearance, it's not going to work like that anymore. But that's still a good thing for the fans, for your fans of the artist to see as well. Those are wins for the fans of the artist also, just as much as it is for the artist.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and you almost have, because it's so expensive, that press piece, you've almost got to be scaling your business to the point where you can actually afford it.
Yeah.
You know, so that you're not bankrupting yourself.
Right.
You know, $4,000 a month for a publicist versus spending $4,000 a month on digital marketing early days.
That's what I mean.
Makes more sense.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, you start making enough streaming wise and live wise where it's like, yeah, get a publicist, be on Jimmy Kimmel, you know?
Yeah.
Try to go for SNL, try to get that great review in the New York Times, you know, to sort of really fill out the entire picture.
Yeah.
But I think back in the day, everybody was hiring a publicist.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you just had to do it.
Yeah.
Now, not so much.
Yeah, that doesn't break you this day and age. Okay, so publicist?
Publicist, a little bit of radio muscle, digital marketing, that touring piece is essential when you're looking for, you know, a management company that can kind of do everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I would say with managers, there's like 10 boxes you can check, and no manager checks them all.
Right.
Like the best you're gonna do is 7 or 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
You know, there's always something that they're not an expert in. Some managers are really great at creative. Some are better at legal. You know, so you try to find the manager that checks the most of those boxes. And if you're a smart manager, you fill that out with other people that can do those things.
Prop up your weaknesses.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Did you partner up with somebody for this, for a Hall of Fame?
Not yet.
Okay.
No. Yep.
Again, so this is just you're funding this whole thing.
Yep. Yep.
That's crazy. Holy, you love taking the risk. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, we're fortunate in this case. We kind of start with a running start. So we have, you know, Arkells and Lights and Simendi and it's a Super Dupes and
Shout
our
out
friend
Super Dupes.
Cardinal Official. You know, so there's a good client base there,
Yes.
you know, to grow from. I'm not crying in the middle of my office at 4:30 in the morning anymore.
But how important is it that you have the relationship with these artists that they get Chris Taylor on the phone?
I mean, all of them, it's such a small roster. I do have pretty good relationships with almost all of them.
Yeah.
You know, Arkells I've worked with, God, it's going on like 15 years. Lights, it's going on 20 years. Cardinal I've just started with, but I talk to him every day.
Yeah.
Super Dupes I talk to pretty much every day, multiple times a day. Keith, who works with me in New York, he has a roster that he's been with and grown with, you know, himself over the last 5 to 10 years. And we combine on some of his roster, some of the LA-based roster a little bit more than some of the acts that he's been with for a long time. So it's a sort of a different dynamic for everybody. But if he needs me for certain things, little contract review, contact somewhere, you know, we've got an artist that's doing a photo shoot here on Saturday, so I'll go to that and cover that. You know, we sort of mix and match and
Gotcha.
collaborate.